Wet n Wild has just come out with an extension to their Chameleon Chrome collection, and I'm so excited because I have most of everything that they're releasing. At the time that I'm making this video, you can actually purchase all of these items on the Wet n Wild website. We've got 6 chrome shadows, we have a couple of new highlighters, and we also have some new liquid liners. I believe the new formulas are the eyeshadows and the liquid liners. Those were not included in last year's. And I have had some time to play around with these, so let's go ahead and get into it. 3 out of the 6 new eyeshadow shades are iridescent, and I am so happy about that because, as you know, I love an iridescent shadow. This is the shade Moon Flare, and as you can see, it's very, very high impact even on the first swipe. I do need to mention that there is an emollience to the texture on these. If you are someone who absolutely cannot use emollient eyeshadows, that is something to keep in mind. However, do stick with me because I do show some other ways that you can use these shadows. They are also beautiful blinding face highlights, so you can use them that way too. This shade Moon Flare has a beautiful multi-chrome shift to it. You have green and orange as well. I could be wrong, but I honestly don't think that I've seen a brand that's affordable as Wet n Wild do shadows quite like this, so this is very exciting. Here is what Moon Flare looks like applied to both eyes. The next shade that we have is Lunar Voltage, which is basically a green iridescent. It does have a blue flip to it, and I will show that in a different lighting. In my experience, the texture on all 6 shades is the same. You get a lot of intensity even on the first swatch, and you have a lot of sparkle and shine. Something I noticed is that there is a corresponding iridescent for every jewel tone shade. So there's a green jewel tone shade and then there's a green iridescent. I really love how they decided to do that. It does make for some very easy pairings, and love how the iridescents can be used as toppers on the lips and as face highlights as well. Here's what Lunar Voltage looks like swatched in another lighting, just so you can really see that deep kind of teal blue shift. The next shade we have is Starlight Fever. This is the more kind of pink leaning iridescent shade. It does have a shift to it, which I'll show, but this is a really pretty ethereal pink. It's got a yellow, orange, and green shift. There's just so many ways that you can use iridescents, part of why I love them as much as I do, and I have dedicated videos to iridescents. If you're curious, I will go ahead and link that in the cards. I do feel like if you're someone who enjoys the highlighters but would really love to have something that is even higher impact, use the iridescents as highlighters, even on the face, because they will work really well. Here's what the shade Starlight Fever looks like applied to both eyes. And also here is another lighting where you can really see that intense shift that I was talking about earlier. I'm nuts about these iridescent shades, and I truly hope to see that they decide to expand this range in the future. I do really like the jewel tone ones, but those kind of shades have been around for a while. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and get into those 3 jewel tone shades. The first is Comet Couture. This is a yellow-orange base with a strong kind of grungy green shift. And again, I'll show that in a different lighting, but look how high impact it is on the first application. And applied to both eyes, you can see that shift really well in the mirror. If you are someone who enjoys grungy golds, I think you would really get on with this type of shade. And if you're looking for something simple, pair this with the yellow iridescent in your brow bone and inner corner, and you've got an easy 5-minute makeup look. If you are a multi-chrome nerd like I am, you probably do have shades like this, but it's just, again, really fun to see that Wet n Wild is doing multi-chrome eyeshadows. The next iridescent shadow we have is another jewel tone. This is called Meteor Muse, and it's an intense green shade. Again, if you're a multi-chrome nerd, I think of a jewel-toned multi-chrome shadow from Cleona, something like Trefoil. This shade is definitely giving those vibes. I would describe this as a bright green, and it has a subtle blue shift. All of these shades make really beautiful, easy, effortless, one and done shadows. I also didn't experience any fallout with them, which was a definite plus. Here's what it looks like applied on both eyes and what the subtle kind of teal blue shift looks like in a different lighting. Another great high impact, low effort eye look. Okay, the last shade that we have is called Nebula Rush, and this has a sort of like pinky magenta base, and it has a strong golden green shift. This is another shade where, yes, we've seen shades like these before from both indie and mainstream brands, but not at price points like this. I think this will be a very popular shade, and it's just so satisfying to see that intense shift. I feel like with multichrome shadows, you sort of have to give them their space to shine. You kind of need to do a simpler look in general in order to really appreciate the shift of each shade. Here's what it looks like applied to both eyes, and then of course another lighting so you can see that intense golden green shift. Here is what all 6 shades look like swatched in the back of my hand. I tried to organize them so that you could see the corresponding iridescent and jewel tone shade that make for very easy pairings if you are looking for some inspo. And here's what all 6 shades look like swatched in another lighting so you can really appreciate those chrome shifts. And I would absolutely love to see them expand and give us some purples and some blues. That's what I would love to see next from them in this range. All right, now let's get into these Chameleon Chrome highlighters. This is a product that I had probably anticipated most from this collection. Y'all have heard me talk about the chrome highlighters from Wet n Wild probably so many times that you're almost sick of hearing about them, but they came out with a blue and a green one last year. And they're just so much fun. I'm very happy to see they expanded this range. This is the shade Solar Ember. It is basically like an orange highlighter. If you layer it up, you can get a very pretty glow on the cheeks, but you can also use this, of course, as an inner corner highlight, a brow bone highlight, or even as an eyeshadow. And I will show you examples of how you can use that in my looks a little bit later, but here is what it looks like applied, just so you can get a sense for what the shade looks like on my skin tone. The orange is probably what I was most excited about. Okay, the second shade we have is called Aurora Glaze, and I think this will be very popular. People love their pink highlighters, myself included. This shade is predominantly pink, but I think it's got like maybe a subtle kind of purple blue shift. In my opinion, the texture of these highlighters feels similar to the ones last year. These are sheer, they're sparkly, they can be built up if you want to for a higher opacity, or they can be dusted on for something more subtle. My preferred way of applying them is with my fingertip, but you could also use a brush if that's what you want to do, especially if you're applying it to the cheek and you just want kind of a light dusting. There's definitely some different ways that you can apply these. In one comment that I got, I heard that these highlighters weren't as special or as intense as the ones last year, and I'm not sure I agree. I think these are pretty on par with last year's. You can let me know what you think if you end up trying these and you compare them yourself, but here is what both shades look like swatched in the back of my hand, and then I did, just for the sake of comparison, want to show you what the green and the blue look like applied. This is the shade Too Serious, which is the green highlighter. Intensity-wise, I do think these are on par with the new shades. I am glad that they started with green and blue though. I just love those shades and they're so fun. They kind of like created an atmosphere for what we can expect from the Chrome collection in general. Okay, the other pieces that I have from this new collection are the liquid liners. These are multichromes. I think these are a brand new formula, so I was excited to see how they were going to work for me. I don't use products like these all the time, but when I am trying to do something a little bit more fun and editorial, I do reach for things like this. I gotta say, these were very user-friendly. I don't always have the highest hopes when it comes to products like these because they're hard to do right. I found the applicator to be precise. There was good pigmentation. There was no skipping. The only thing that I did was kind of go back a couple times and build up the intensity. But that was more a matter of needing more product on the brush than anything else. And honestly, I think these are great on first impression, that is. All right, let's go ahead and play with these eyeshadows. I thought what I would do is just do a bunch of all shimmer looks, starting off with this really beautiful, rich green jewel tone shadow. I'm just going to use a finger, and I did put a shimmer primer My preferred shimmer primer of choice has been Cleona and Bad to the Brows. And I just popped, not because of fallout, but just to kind of minimize creasing a little bit. But that is really, really pigmented, shiny. So high impact. Now I'm just going to take this shade Nebula Rush, and this one has a really strong green flip. I don't feel like, these shades are particularly unique when it comes to multichromes in general, but the fact that you're able to get these at the drugstore at such an affordable price point, I feel like is unique and special and should be celebrated. All right, now I'm going to take that gorgeous green leaning iridescent called Lunar Voltage and just use it as my highlighting shade. I feel like, what's nice about these is even if you are someone who experiences creasing, like you could get the more highlighting shades and pop them on the inner corner on the brow bone and use them that way and still be able to get something out of these shades. And I'm also going to demo this as a face highlight because I feel like, again, when you have textures like these are super high impact, but are also really blinding, beautiful highlights. They're kind of like, something I really enjoy about the sheen effect shades. And, I see some similarities there in terms of, the way that the sheen effect shadows are also a little bit emollient. They're not quite as emollient as these, but just something I really enjoy is using them as intense, blinding highlights. And then if you're really going for an editorial moment, you can put this on the lips and it looks super cool. Hopefully you can see how intense that highlight is on camera. All right, and for the second look, I'm going to start off with this iridescent shade called Starlight Fever. And this is straight on a pink iridescent, but it has a strong golden shift, as I showed when I was doing my swatches. Now I'm going to take Comet Couture, which is basically a gold straight on, but has a strong green flip to it. I really like also that they kind of have a jewel toned and a corresponding iridescent. So if you do want to kind of just pair those two together, I think it would make really cool and easy looks to do. Now I'm going to go in with this yellowish iridescent called Moon Flare, and this one has a strong green flip to it. All of these iridescents are so intense. Now I'm going to take this shade and use it again as a face highlight. I feel like this honestly is probably how I'm going to be using these shades the most. A little bit down the bridge of the nose. And a little bit on the lips. And here is the second completed look. And right now I have all 6 shadows on my face. I really was just having fun with these shades to show you some of the things that you can do. It's always a good day when you get to play with multichromes. And because I thought it would be useful for me to include some footage where I had this on for a while, this is me after wearing this green shade for 6.5 hours. If you're looking at me straight on, I think the shadow looks great, but if I hold my lid down, you can definitely see some creasing. This is honestly what I expected from wearing these shadows. They're simply not going to be as long wear as other shades that don't have this emollient texture. All right, and for my second set of looks, I'm just going to play around with these beautiful new highlighters. These highlighters were some of my favorite pieces of the Chameleon Chrome collection last year. So I'm really excited to see that they went ahead and added some new shades. I'm going to start off with Solar Ember and just going to show you, one of my favorite things to do is actually just use it as eyeshadow. Now I feel like these ones are maybe slightly less sparkly than the ones last year. Not much though. I mean, these are still pretty intensely sparkly, but if you don't like to wear a sparkly highlighter, I feel like they make really pretty eyeshadow as well. I just created like an easy halo eye. So I put a little bit on the lid, and then I'm going to put some on the brow bone and the inner corner. And then I'm going to go ahead and pop a little bit on the top of the cheekbone. I actually feel like, it's finely milled enough that it doesn't look like, it doesn't accentuate texture in a crazy way. And then a little bit on the lip. Now I'm going to play around a little bit with Aurora Glaze. This is the sort of more pink leaning one. It does have a golden green shift to it as well. You don't see the shift as much with these highlighters as you do with the single shadows, and I think it's just they're not as opaque. And then a little bit on the center of the lid. That is really pretty. The brow bone and the inner corner. And here's what the side looks like that has Aurora Glaze and Solar Ember. Now that I've had a chance to go through everything, let's close up with some wrap-up thoughts. So first things first, I am really excited to see that Wet n Wild decided to expand this Chameleon Chrome collection range. I feel like this was one of the best releases that they had last year and really kick-started a series of very exciting launches from Wet n Wild. So happy to see, and I think that these are going to be permanent in the range. If you're somebody who gets creasing with emollient shimmers, then I definitely would keep that in mind. You can use the shadows in different ways. I feel like as highlighters, they work really, really well, but you are probably going to get creasing on the lids if you're somebody who has creasing with emollient shimmers. So definitely something to keep in mind. I think that if that's just a complete and total no-go for you and you're not going to use them in other ways, I would probably pass on them. I think the highlighters would be a good option. I do think that the quality of these is on par with the quality from the highlighters last year. I feel like I got a really pretty glow on the cheeks, and if you build up the intensity, they look really pretty as eyeshadows. So I'm happy to say I really don't think that these are misses, and I think that these shades are welcome additions to the line. The eyeliners, I'm not sure exactly how many shades are going to come out, but they worked really, really well. I feel like the applicators were very precise. They were easy to apply, to go over where I needed to build up a little bit more opacity. So, if you're somebody who likes graphic eyeliner and liquid liner, I think that you're really going to enjoy those eyeliners. I think when it comes to brands that are doing fun and exciting makeup at an affordable price point, Wet n Wild really is kind of creating the standard. So it's going to be really fun to see what other affordable brands are going to bring us multichromes and just fun and exciting makeup. I would really love to hear what you think of this new collection. As always, I really hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.